Hey everybody, it is Friday afternoon and we are about to do a very spur-of-the-moment round-the-world update. I was coming in here to shoot some other video and it kind of occurred to me I've not done one of these in a while. In fact, it's been long enough that I can't remember what the last thing I talked about in all the tanks was, so I'll try to cover everything, but I've had a lot going on this week, so I don't know if I'll get everything or not, but I will do my best. 29 miscellaneous here, same as always, nothing going on. I lost that one skirt tetra in there, that blue glowfish, but I think that's been a while now, and I'm pretty sure I covered that in my last video. So otherwise, nothing going on in my 29. My gourami tank. I did a big water change recently. I removed a lot of the plants, and that's why it's so bright and wide open. I also recently was able to see my blue loach, or my red-tailed loach, whatever you want to call that, that I was beginning to suspect quite a while ago was just gone. I hadn't seen it in so long, I thought that it was dead and gone and had rotted away without me ever finding anything out about it. But it is still in there, so that's good news. The bad news is I lost my opaline gourami. I don't know what happened to her around the same time that my moonlight gourami, the one you can see there, developed a bloated belly. I don't want to go so far as to call it bloat or dropsy, and I do still mean to do a video about that. It's just I never get around to doing all the videos I want to. So if that's a video you want to see, and it seems like I'm taking a while to get around to it, don't be shy about reminding me to do that. I often forget I want to shoot videos. So I will talk about dropsy or bloat or whatever you want to call it. But at any rate, around the same time she was experiencing that, my opaline gourami developed what appeared to be a swim bladder issue, and she kept sinking to the bottom. And that only lasted about 2 days, and then she passed away. And now my gold gourami, which is usually hiding up in this corner behind the power head, there she is, she's lying on her side. She's still alive, and she still, when she gets startled, she still tries to swim, but she floats like a cork and goes right back up to the top. So she's also dealing with the swim bladder issue, only the other way around. She's full of air and can't get to the bottom, whereas my opaline had no air and was doing nothing but getting to the bottom. So don't know how much longer my gold gourami is going to last in there. It doesn't look good. There's not a lot I can do about it. I have also noticed over the last several days I've been trying to pretend this isn't happening, but I'm pretty sure this is happening. You can't really see her because she's doing poorly and she's kind of hiding in the back. But my other moonlight gourami, the one we have not seen, is getting really, really skinny. And when I look at her in the water, I can tell that like her tail sort of droops and hangs down. She doesn't sit reasonably level like this one does. This one still looks good and healthy and normal. And when she's just hovering in the water column, her tail's more or less even with her eyeball. The other one is not so much, and I'm looking at her and she's getting more and more emaciated looking and thinner. So again, this could be just a simple matter of these fish are starting to get old and they're all sort of starting to wind down. I've had this tank, this is one of my longest running tanks. The fish in here are some of my oldest fish, and gouramis apparently don't have a very long lifespan. So I'm not sure what else could be going on, but it looks like the era of my gourami tank is sort of winding down. It makes me kind of sad in a way, but on the other hand, it also lets me know I've been keeping fish long enough now that I feel like I've been sort of, move out of the beginner category. I've had some fish long enough now that a tank is sort of, recycling itself into something new because, time's moving on. So we'll see how all that goes. I will keep you up to date, but I don't expect my gourami tank to really be much of a gourami tank for very much longer. I'm going to be down to this moonlight, and that's it. So we'll have to wait and see what else I do with this tank. I don't know if I'm going to put gouramis back in it and sort of make it my gourami tank again, or what I'm going to do yet. So stay tuned for that. You never know. My angelfish tank. I don't think I've done a video since I had my disaster. I came down here one morning and I had a bunch of dead fish. I had about a half a dozen dead Serpae tetras. I lost my Pimelodus pictus catfish, that beautiful shiny silver catfish. I lost my Crenocycla compressiceps, the dwarf green pike cichlid. And I didn't know what had happened. It was clearly an oxygen deprivation situation. The fish that were still alive were all hovering around the surface, gasping for breath. And long story short, it was my fault. It was neglect on the tank. I will attach a card where I go into much more detail about what I did and why all of the fish died. But it really did just boil down to my lack of maintenance and lack of attention. I allowed the water surface to get covered with biofilm and plants, and I didn't have enough surface agitation or water movement, and I wound up causing a suffocation situation where my fish literally suffocated from oxygen deprivation in the tank. So again, watch that video if you want any more details than that. Otherwise, nothing else really going on in this tank, although I'll grant you that's a pretty big something that went on in this tank. I will point out that this is really starting to get on my nerves. If you look in the back there, my drape cloth in the back keeps falling off. I only hold it on with tape, and I'll grant you that the tape held up for 4 years, but it came loose recently, and every attempt I've made to tape it back up, it keeps dropping off and falling back like that. So that's something I'm going to need to get back in there and tape back up. And that, I think, is all with the Angelfish tank. I haven't done any more gravel removal or anything like that. I think I did a water change or something simple like that, but nothing beyond that. My Black Ghost knifefish tank. That is not algae all over the glass. I know enough about what algae looks like, and I've got various kinds of algae in this tank. I've always struggled with the green in this tank, but that is, once again, that green cyanobacteria has come back with a vengeance. I'll grant you it's been a while since I've done any maintenance on this tank. I really don't even remember the last time I did a water change, and I'm kind of really don't remember the last time I did a filter change on this tank. So it really is time to get in there and do some work on it. Let's see what the surface looks like. It should... Yeah, see, it's still nice and crystal clear. As long as I'm not getting that scummy biofilm across the surface, that's where I really start getting into danger, and that's what happened in my other tank. The surface skimmer stopped working. I knew it wasn't working, and I just simply didn't worry about it. And over time, that biofilm became so thick, it was blocking the gas exchange, and the CO2 wasn't getting out of the water, and new fresh oxygen wasn't getting in the water. So I'm not worried about that on this tank just yet. It simply looks unattractive and ugly, and you can't really see into the tank. So I'll get in there and wipe the glass down. Let's see if we can see past all that. You can see all the green stringy strands flowing in the current back there off the tips of my Java fern. You can see a little, it looks like one of those old little trolls that you used to put on the top of pencils back in the day, sticking up in the back with their green hair back there. This is all a combination of green cyanobacteria and maidenhair green algae. Let's see if we can see it or not. If you look through all the scum on that piece of wood back there, you see that little green plant growing on it. That's actually an anubias that is almost kind of dwarfed over the years. Tiny, tiny little leaves, but that is an anubias growing back there. And it's now covered with a green mat of cyanobacteria. Again. So pretty soon I'll be doing another treatment in this tank. I'll get in there and I'll wipe everything down, but from time to time I do get in there and I use the blue-green slime stain remover and put an air stone in it and so on and so forth. I may try using the antibiotic. I want to look into that a little more. I've talked to a few people about it, and I might try dosing this tank with antibiotic and seeing if that makes a difference, as opposed to the way I've always done it in the past by using that blue-green slime stain remover, which is not an antibiotic, and it removes it via a different mechanism. So clearly it's never really gotten rid of it, no matter how many times I've doubled, tripled, and quadrupled dosed the tank. 4 cycles back to back to back to back, and here we are 2 months later and my tank is all green again. So maybe I'll try something different this time. So look forward to that. Excuse me. My native tank. I've done a few little modifications to this tank. One of the main things I did was on this end of the tank, I turned off the one light fixture that sat forward on the tank and really lit up the front of the tank. You'll notice how there's a lot more texture and shadowing on the piece of wood in particular that used to have a twin tube fixture directly above it. So I do have a plan for what I'm going to do with that fixture. When I turned it off, I was kind of scratching my head. I've got a good, it's a T5 high output Coral Life fixture with new tubes in it, so I really should be doing something with it, and I do have a place I can use that. So again, another video will be coming up pretty soon about that, so make sure you're subscribed, you won't miss any of that or anything else I got coming up. I'm always working on 14 videos at a time, at least in my head. Also added a bunch of creek chubs last week, and they all died overnight, and I wasn't sure exactly why they died, but at first I thought possibly it could have been my water, but I decided it was probably a combination of my water and low oxygen levels, or at least lower than the stream fish are used to. So I did install the dreaded air bubble stone that I hate so much, and I even went out of my way to make sure that some of the bubbles would get caught up in the power head and would disperse them into the tank in a very, very fine manner. I mentioned a little bit about the idea that there's a little bit of controversy. Some people think that it's the rising water that creates the gas exchange. Other people insist that it's actually the bubbles physically being in the water itself that creates the gas exchange. I've actually shot some videos in the past about it, and depending on the time of the video, I've had different opinions in the past. So I might shoot a video here in the near future sharing my thoughts on the use of air stones and how they work and how they actually facilitate the gas exchange in your tank. So that might be something that's coming up pretty soon here in the near future too. So whether that's going to help or not, you know, with creek chubs, if I add them, I don't know, but it's certainly not going to hurt. I'm trying to just sort of pretend there's a waterfall off to the side that we can't really see, and that's where all these bubbles are coming from, and this looks like a very natural underwater environment in a stream. You might see very clear water in a stream, but you see lots and lots of bubbles and micro bubbles in streams too, so that doesn't look too unnatural to me. It's growing on me. I'm trying to get used to it, and you know, the fish are going to be a lot happier and healthier for it. So I also spoke at length about my water, and I did shoot a video about my water. I'll attach a card here if you want to look into that a little more thoroughly and find out why I'm always saying I have odd water, and I thought that maybe the creek chubs died as a result of my water, etc., etc. So go ahead and check that video out too. My snail tank is still just my snail tank. There's nothing really to talk about with this one. Maybe one day I will get in there and I will pull the remaining shrimp out of the tank, because I think the shrimp might actually eat the snail eggs, and the snail don't breed as fast as you would expect snails to breed in an environment where it's literally just a tank that I throw food in and let snails breed. It should go crazy with the snail population, and it never really does, and I suspect that could be from the shrimp eating the snail eggs, or possibly even just killing and eating the baby snails as they hatch and grow. Shrimp can be pretty aggressive, even though they don't really have a reputation for being nasty animals like that. But I do have a bunch of ghost shrimp in this tank, and that could be the cause of that. So, you know, we'll see. My T-bar / Gudgeon Tank. I really wish I could do something. Let me try standing over here and getting a different angle. The way the native tank glares on this tank makes it really difficult to video unless I've prepared and hung drapes and covered the tank so that you're not getting the reflection from behind. Other than that, I got nothing really going on in this tank to talk about at all. I still have not gotten in there and rerouted those the Java fern. But it's growing. I mean, it's Java fern, so it's not like it won't grow in the water column. But I really do need to get in there and put the Java fern back under the edge of these rocks over here and just sort of tuck it in so that it looks a little nicer and not just so sort of jumbled up and mishmashed in there. I am still planning on doing a video of the gudgeon jumping out of the water and taking food out of my hands. I've not forgotten about that. I just haven't gotten around to doing it. So be patient. I will do it. I think about it a lot. It's just usually while I'm feeding the fish, and it's too late at that point to worry about getting out the tripod and setting up the lighting and so on and so forth. So someday I will get to doing that. In the meantime, again, nothing really going on, just kind of trying to give everybody a look at this tank. I really like the fish in this tank, and this T-bar in particular. He was a sort of oddball that I bought one day. I'd never heard of it before, didn't even know what it was. It was very impulsive buy. I went to the fish store determined to bring home a fish that day, And the guy at the store insisted that this fish would be fantastic for the little 20-gallon tank I was looking for. Obviously, it's not always the best idea to listen to the employee at the fish store when they're giving you advice on which fish to buy, especially when you don't know what you're doing. But one thing led to another, and over time as he grew, I decided that he was going to get his own tank. And eventually he came over here, and now this has been his permanent home ever since, and I'm really, really happy with him. He's a really, really cool fish. Beautiful, too. Really, really beautiful fish. If I ever run across a female, I think I probably will get a female for him, and we might get to see some amazing colors if he goes into breeding sort of competition colors. That would be fantastic. So, moving on, we've got, if I can get around the pile of stuff here in the middle of the room, in fact, let's walk back here. We can see the whole tank for a moment. This is my 125. It is my African-themed tank. It's not a true biotope, as none of my tanks are. I've got clown loaches and some plecos and stuff in there that are most decidedly not African fish. But I've also got the Congo tetras and the tenopoma and the synodontis, which are African fish. And so that's good enough for me. Nothing really going on in this tank that I can think of either. I lost another Congo, but that was a couple of weeks ago, so I've probably talked about that already. I did a really big water change and plant removal where I got in there, and I really trimmed back the water sprite. In fact, what I did was I took the original giant mother water sprite that was in there, and when I say mother, I mean the mother plant, the original plant that I got all those babies off of. And I removed that completely, and I took one of the babies and sort of started from scratch. And you can see there's a nice little new shoot coming up there. This whole shoot right here is nice and brand new. Not sure why all this brownish looking stuff is growing on the leaves or on the foliage, but it always gets that sort of brown. Let's see if we can see it better. See how it has that brown all over it, and it's not nice bright green leaves. I don't know what that is and how it gets there. I suppose it could be brown diatom algae, but I don't really know why I'd have the diatom algae growing all over the foliage and not growing all over the glass or anything else in there. That doesn't really make sense to me, so I'm not really sure what's going on with that. Otherwise, again, I can't really think of anything in this tank worth talking about. It's always just nice to take a few moments and have a look at it. I really like the woodwork in this tank and the way it stays so beautifully clean and rich and wood colored, and it doesn't get all just sort of gray and covered the way the wood in my native tank gets. And I'm pretty sure that's because I have the plecos in here. Technically they're not plecos, they're Ancestris and Hypancistris species. But, I mean, look at the wood. It looks like it's come right fresh from a wood shop. It doesn't look like it's been underwater for 4 years. But that piece of, well, I guess this piece of wood came a little later, maybe 3 years this piece of wood's been underwater. And it still looks pretty good, and that is from the plecos chewing on it. My brackish tank with Butterbean, the world famous figure 8 puffer. Nothing really going on in here, although actually now that I'm thinking about it, again I forgot, it's been a while since I've done one of these around the world videos. If you'll notice all the new construction on the left, I decided that Butterbean needed a little more hiding places and, you know, stuff to interact with, some caves and structure, and so I did a really big water change, got in there, and I pulled out a bunch of the old dead Java fern that was never really doing too well in there, and I replaced it with some Anubias that I took from my Angelfish tank with that huge Anubias that's growing in there. And I've also put these rocks here. I swear I did something else in here. We've got the new rocks. We've got... Oh, I lost a bumblebee goby. That was the other thing I was going to say. I lost a bumblebee goby. I've added 2 of these Endler's guppies. One of them subsequently has vanished, so I'm back to just 1 Endler's guppy. I do have plenty more, so when another one gets up a little bit bigger and looks pretty, that will wind up in this tank as well. And what else did I do? I think that's going to be about it. I did take a piece of the water sprite out of my gourami tank, that really weird gangly looking piece, and I put that in here, so we're going to find out whether that grows or not. And I thought I was missing some Anubias, so there's my mystery Anubias that's now floating in the back of the tank, so I'll need to get in there and put that back. My quarantine tank is still just sitting here being a quarantine tank, not a lot going on. I've still got the hatchet fish in there. Still got a bunch of guppies that are in there growing up and doing their things. Again, eventually when I get some that are big enough that I can really make a determination on what they are, male or female. That looks like a male Endler right there. So that's pretty easy to spot. That will probably end up in my brackish tank with Butterbean. And there's a couple more in there that are getting big enough that they're going to start finding new homes in other tanks. And that's pretty much all that's going on there with my quarantine tank. Last and certainly not least is my red-clawed crab tank. Today I did a water change. I really need to get in there and replace a lot of the plants and foliage, you know, the moss and stuff that I gather from the yard. That's all been torn up and eaten up. Those crabs are voracious. It's like having a tank full of bunny rabbits. I mean, they just devour vegetation. It's incredible. All the little tiny baby guppies that I had in there, little endlers and stuff, they're all starting to get fairly sizable, so you're starting to see some larger fish. This is a really, really dirty tank. Every time I do a water change on it, I get a ton of filth out of it, and then the water stays cloudy for a long time afterwards. And the last water change, the water never cleared up. It just stayed cloudy. So I'm not sure what's going on in this tank. I've got no nitrites or ammonia or anything like that. Everything's fine. It just, the cloudiness just seems to stay in there. So again, not really sure what's going on with that, but water parameters check out and everybody seems happy and healthy, so I'm not going to sweat it too much. Again, did just do the water change today, and I did that in preparation for a video I'm going to be shooting about the waterfall you can see right there on the right. So I will attach a card to this tank. This is my red-clawed crab tank. That's where the video for the waterfall will be. And I'm going to try experimenting with some different rocks and see what we can do with the way the water pattern falls and the sound of the splashing and the, you know, the visual appeal of the various rocks and the pattern of water falling off of it, etc. So that'll be something worth watching, I think. I think that'll be an interesting video. Other than that, nothing really going on here. Just, you know, having a look at the tank for a few minutes. I wish the crabs were out more. I swear they always run and hide whenever I start shooting video. Possibly my voice booming in the room. Don't know what to tell you on that one. At any rate, that's it. That's all the tanks in this room. I do have more upstairs, but those are never included in my Around the Worlds because they're not part of this world. So thanks for watching this one. Don't forget to subscribe. I got lots of stuff going on, lots of stuff coming up. You don't want to miss any of that. Thanks again for watching. I'll see you real soon in the next one.